Well, hey there, peoples, or what up, peeps, or how you doings, or what's going on, or whatever the fuck your introduction might want to be. Hi, how are you? My name is Carpo. I'm sitting here with my hat on, pretending that I'm Santa. I've always found it fascinating that if you rearrange the letters, it's Satan. So wait, Omicron Santa could be moronic Satan, or vice versa, I guess. I love fucking with words. It's fun. Um, anyway, hi. How y'all doing out there? I sat down to make this video like an hour ago and I ended up just walking away. There's just too much involved in talking about being a parent, talking about the future of children and all the problems that we face and all the bullshit that we have to deal with in our daily lives without sounding like a whiner or a complainer or boo hoo as a parent. What I wanted to say, and I think I can get this through now, after thinking about it for a couple days, being a parent is the dirtiest job. Mike Rowe. Everybody knows who Mike Rowe is. Dirty Jobs. Back in the day, watching him go and do all these weird jobs, they all pale in comparison to being a parent. I don't care if you're working at a sewage treatment plant or being a roofer. And by the way, I worked as a roofer for a long time when I was young. It was one of the first construction jobs I had. And I wasn't just a roofer, I was a roofer that worked in the Pacific Northwest, where we'd go up on a roof in the rain because my boss was a cokehead and he just wanted to make money and didn't give a shit about us. He'd send us up on a roof without a harness or with corks, which are basically just spiked shoes, on a 45-degree slope wood shake roof that's covered with moss in the rain. Um, Interesting times. And I also worked in a place that processed food that had been sitting there for months. Stuff that the stores, when it's damaged or punctured, they send it back to this factory and then they process it for their insurance claims. I worked there for a while and we would have these cans of dog and cat food coming down the line that are maggots sitting out there in the open. You're scanning them. And so, yeah, dirty jobs. Point being, none of it compares to spending years wiping the shit out of your children's ass. Now, that's just a small part of it, naturally. Sometimes it's on the floor, sometimes it's on the rug, or on their pillow, or on their leg. Sometimes it's in public, or all over their stroller. And so this is just within the first couple of years. And then we raise our children and we start teaching them some basic math, some skills, some reading. Next thing you know, you're trying to teach them values and morals in a world that is failing all of us. And I don't mean a world, rather, but in a system that's failing all of us. And so, what I want to get to in the crux of my discussion here is being a parent is difficult. It was always hard. But being a parent 100 years ago, or even 40 years ago, was completely different. Because at least in the parent's mind, you had the illusion that if I raise my children to have an education, maybe send them to college, or if I teach them to work on the farm, whatever it may be, these jobs will be there for them when they're older. And that's turning out not to be true. The future is changing so quickly that we don't know how to predict it. And this is lending a whole new avenue to worry and anxiety in the kids of today. This has manifested in their extremely sarcastic sense of humor. Meme, not just using memes, but using extremely outdated meta jokes and just the absurdity of comedy today in the kids' atmosphere should be an alarm to everyone. And that might sound ridiculous, but our sense of humor and what we find funny and the things we find funny, they do change with time. But it has changed so drastically because the kids are looking for something cynical and sarcastic to kind of represent how they feel. It's a reflection of an entire generation. It does make a difference. These kids are the first ones to grow up with technology at their fingertips all the time. And so being a parent to these kids, like I have 3 children, by the way, and I consider myself an expert parent. That's sarcastic, of course. Being a parent's hard. I have a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 26-year-old. My 26-year-old, Raistlin, back in the early 2000s, when he was really young, we moved to a farmhouse. And we lived at this farmhouse out in Tualatin, Oregon. And it was beautiful. We had this huge garden that the farmer that owned it would till up for us each year. And then one day they came and gave us a notice to move, and everything changed. They were selling the land to the Lazy Boy Furniture Factory. Progress, right? So we had to move within 30 days. We ended up getting a motel, moving in with her sister, then buying the house we live in now, which we've been in for 17 years. In that time, he grew up as a single child. We were able to give him all the things a kid would want. And I'm not talking about money or stuff. He never had things. It was about love. That is what a parent needs to give to their children. You can't buy your kids off once a year with Christmas. And with this season coming, a lot of parents will go out and they'll spend thousands of dollars on their children. We don't. We don't. My kids don't even ask for much. In fact, my youngest son probably wants like $30 worth of shit. My oldest son just wants a new game or a better graphics card for his computer. They're not money hungry. They're not stuff hungry. And I firmly believe this is because of the values that we've instilled in them. It does matter what a parent teaches their kids. It does matter. The little things you say. And as a parent, if you have kids, you'll know what I'm talking about. I should say, if you're a human being and you had parents, you know what I'm talking about. Think back. At least your father or your mother had said something to you at one point that really resonated with you and stuck with you. Something that today you can remember them saying. Something you say, I remember when my dad taught me this. I remember when he took me out, showed me how to either shoot or how to deal with a situation or how to defend myself, whatever it might be. Or my mom showed me how to bake, make cookies. That sounds really sexist, doesn't it? But you get my point. You grow up with these little moments of clarity where one of your parents teaches you something, or both of your parents maybe confront you on something and you have a discussion. These are important moments. These are moments that kids will remember, and we better make them good. You know, I think one of the biggest aspects of kids today, and especially kids all the time, is we need to teach them better than we were. And, you know, it's really interesting. This has come up twice in the last week. I had somebody mentioned, I went to the dentist the other day. I had a couple teeth pulled. And I was talking to the dental hygienist, and we were talking about kids and how I wanted to move to Kentucky, buy some property because it was affordable there. And I just want to be able to kind of escape society. And she said, yeah, she has a house, and it's like one of those cookie cutter houses, and it's too big. They want to downsize, move to something simpler. And we started talking about kids. And either the hygienist or the dentist said something about, be careful, your kids these days, you know, they're going to be smarter than you are. And I looked and I said, I hope my kids are smarter than I am. And I hope they can teach me things. I had somebody recently say, wait till your kids get older and they start telling you what's up. And I said, yes, that's exactly it. That's what I want. I already have my son, my 12-year-old son, teaching me how to fix computers or certain aspects of coding, things like that. I have my 26-year-old son teaching me about music and chords he's learned because that's what his thing is, plays guitar. And my youngest son teaches me how to be happy because he just can make a joy out of anything. He has his moments of frustration, he gets angry, he throws a tantrum, but he's self-conscious and self-aware at 9 years old to the point where he knows. So all these moments are kind of just moments of life, raising kids, somebody's mad, somebody's happy. But those little moments where we really interact with our kids make a huge impact. And I just wanted to make that clear. I told my kids today, whatever you do, I'll support you. And I try to always instill that in them, in those little moments where we're eating together and talking. I want my kids to be artists. I want my kids to be musicians. It saddens me that so many parents out there have this finger pointing at their kids like, oh, you're not going to be a rock star, or don't bother with that. You should do something more productive. You have no idea how damaging that can be to a child. And here's the biggest thing, if your kid can teach you something, that should be a valuable asset to any parent. Because ultimately, when we talk about having kids, we say we want them to have better lives than we had. In order to lead a better life than we had, they have to be more intelligent than we were. And I found it's really hard for parents to admit that their kids are more intelligent than they are. That's a tough one. So one aspect about this, and it might be a little bit off track, but it's along the same lines here, is one thing I'd like to teach my kids is what I learned. One of the most important and valuable assets was working with your hands. And I was watching a Dark Horse podcast the other day. It was Brett and Heather, and they were talking about this. Something about, Brett said something about working with your hands, and he said, people who work with their hands have been shown in these studies that they've done, supposedly, finding out what people do, what kind of hobbies they have, what careers they have. People who work intimately with their hands tend to be more down to earth. Now, I know that could be very subjective. What do you mean by down to earth? I'm a down to earth person in my mind, and I know other down to earth people. So I don't have to explain that to anyone else. Down to earth is a very specific type of person. It's the kind of person you can look them in the eye and say, I want to talk to you seriously, and they're like, what's up? They don't make a joke or try to joke around and make, or make light of something or make you feel awkward. They're just like, what do you want to talk about? Down to earth people are a very unique breed. And he said that when you work with your hands a lot, it teaches you that the objects you're working with don't always cooperate the way you want to. Now, this isn't working with your hands like just playing music. As a musician, it's not the same. And as a person who might use their hands for a certain job, it's not the same. It's not the same as working with a natural substance, for example. As I'm a carpenter. When I work with wood, and this was the point he made, when you work with your hands, you have to oblige to the authority, I think is how they put it, the authority of the object that you're working with. Let's say you're a potter. Let's say you're a painter, and you have to work with the paint, the air, how fast it dries, the texture, the density. You have to work as a carpenter. You can't force a board to make the grain the way you want it. You deal with it. And that teaches you patience, humility, understanding, a sense of humor in a way that I can't ever explain here, but trust me, if there's anything we can gain from, it's working with our hands. Those hands, those digits, they're meant to be worked with. We want to be using our hands. And typing on a keyboard doesn't count, my friends. Texting doesn't count. I'm talking about doing something that requires dexterity. When I was at the dentist, I thought that's a great job, honestly, when you think about it. That type of work that you have to do, working those utensils. You're working with the teeth you have, and with the medicine you have. So another aspect of things I think, and these are just things I think we should teach our kids, not just to work with their hands, but that failure is strength in action. There's no such thing as failure. Failure just means that you've learned a lesson, what not to do again. Now, if you continue to make that same mistake, then that is not just failure, that's just insanity. You're repeating the same bullshit. But failure is strength because it helps us grow and become better and not make the same mistakes. And if we cannot accomplish what we want, often it will breed fear. We will have a fear of the outside world. We will find external people or situations to blame for where we are at, such as blaming the government because we're broke or blaming other people because we feel down. You cannot do that. It's a complete victim status bullshit. You are in charge of your own reality. I don't care how bad it gets. You need to walk away from situations that put you down. And I know it's not always easy, but it is important. And that's something I want to teach my kids as well. Don't put up with other people's bullshit. Walk away from it. And so that fear arises from somebody said it, I think, if I can word it correctly. They said, fear arises from an illusion of future pain, or I guess, it would be more like, our illusion or idea of what might happen. We fear the unknown because we fear my friend was going on a flight the other day. He's going out to DC, and he said he was worried because he's scared of flying. I said, that's ridiculous. I love flying. But then I realized the same day I was going to the dentist, and I have a fear of the dentist, even though I know it's going to be fine. It's an irrational fear because they've got medicine. I guess it's a rational fear for me because I have deep roots in my teeth, and I've had them pulled where it hurt like a son of a bitch, so that's a different story. But fear arises from an illusion of future pain, and 99% of the time when we fear something or are scared of something, it doesn't manifest. And by teaching ourselves that, we can let go of the fear. We let go and realize that we have a circle that we can control, a circle of concern and a circle of influence. If you can influence something and change it for the better, fine, so be it. If you think that the reptilians are running the world, that's nonsense. It's not worth your time, even if it's true, because you can't prove it or do anything about it, right? So the circle of control and concern is important, but the bigger issue here is that when we fear, it creates anger. Anger poisons the mind. It's like a disease seeping through your psyche. Having anger causes you to think irrationally, act irrationally, and, it's important that we let go of that fear. Because fear, if unchecked, becomes anger. And anger is the worst thing we can do for ourselves. It creates all kinds of problems, within the body. The fight or flight is constantly turned on. We are poisoned, literally poisoned. Often when we have too much pride, it can lead to anger because we have expectations of others. And so what I teach my kids is to don't expect the world's going to work out for you the way you want it to. And also, don't be pissed off at other people just because you don't like the way that they act. Walk away from it, like I said. But on the other token, we need others. We need other people. And I think this is a major point here. It's easy to teach your kids to say, fuck the world, don't put up with other people's bullshit, stand up for yourself, don't put up with bullies. But it's much more difficult to say, we need others, you need to love people and care about people. There are a lot of parents out there that do not tell their children they love them, that are so disconnected from their emotions themselves that they don't even know how to talk to their own children. And these kids are going to grow up in a world where they need that emotional support. And if they don't get it from you, they're going to get it from someone else. That's just the way it works. And we don't have a lot of opportunities to love something in life. So take it when you have it. Whether it's a companion, a loved one, friend, family, a kids, it's put that love in there. Tell them you love them. Give them hugs. Make it known that somebody is loved. It's the most important thing we can do. And I know why a lot of people don't. I lost my father from cancer when I was 15. And for the longest time, I was resistant to relationships. I didn't want to have girlfriends in high school. I didn't have any. I didn't want to even have friends out of high school. I was suspicious and reluctant to make any new friends. And I realized later it was because I was scared of loss. Because I had lost somebody I loved. And if you're afraid of loss, you'll never be happy in life. You have to be able to be willing to accept that loss, because the love that comes from accepting other people and having them accept you is worth it. So all we can do is raise our children better than we were. And I would say if our kids are smarter than we are, and they're more loving than we are, more understanding than we are, we shouldn't be threatened by that. We should celebrate that and be glad that our kids are more kind than we are and that our kids are happier than we are. Because ultimately, that's all we can do is raise future generations to be happier. So, thank you for listening. I appreciate you all. I'll talk to you next time. Go hug your kids or your parents or whoever you've got, because that's all we got. Peace.